The Civil Rights Room at the Downtown Public Library is a treasure trove of Nashville history. Watching over that space and sharing the stories of impassioned organizing, community resilience, and incredible personal bravery is Elliott Robinson. He also has a very personal connection to the history he shares with researchers, students, and anyone who happens to stop by. A former history major, Elliott also has a flair for singing and the stage. He brought some of this history to life at this year's Nashville Conference on African American History and Culture. Here he is performing a monologue as civil rights activist Bernard Lafayette.
I assumed directorship of the voter registration campaign in Selma in February 1963. I was 22 years old. I had a strong sense of curiosity, but also a strong sense of determination. There was never a doubt in my mind that change would eventually come. I gave no thought as to whether or not I would live or die. I knew it was going to be dangerous, but I also knew that nothing was really expected of me. We had to help people view as possible what they were told was impossible. Changing the attitude of fear and hopelessness had to happen before we could have any kind of action. Now, we know one individual may not bring about great change alone, but a group can yield a stronger impact. Boy, we have a group. Talking about a squad, right? Y'all seen the musical, Hamilton? The song in there, Not Throwing Away My Shot. Got a line in there. So let's hatch a plot blacker than the kettle calling the pot. What are the odds the gods will put us all in one spot? Again. Well, they don't say again in the Hamilton show, but in terms of Selma, it was again. Right? Because here's my people back with me again. Down in Selma, ready to plant the seeds of another immovable tree. That reminds me of a song. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved.
I'm Demetria Kalodimos. It's Banner and Company. Tell me a little about the one-man performance.
I knew that people trained in the Nashville movement were heavily involved in Selma. Diane, John Lewis, C.T. was down there, James Bevel was down there, and Bernard Lafayette. And so Bernard Lafayette wrote a book about it's called My Journey in Selma, in Peace and Freedom, My Journey in Selma, I think. And I started with that book, and I decided to present it as if I was Bernard Lafayette lecturing to a class about, my background and some of the things that me and some of my Nashville friends did down in Selma. Yeah.
What were some of the things?
Just highlights about him, is like stuff like him taking over the Selma voting campaign at 22 years old, after the experience of being here in the sit-ins and on the freedom rides as well. So he's eminently prepared for whatever, I think, and just how difficult it was, for people to believe he could make any kind of change down there. He said that Selma had actually been taken off the list for SNCC because the white folks were too mean and the black folks were too scared. And James Foreman told him, "You can go on down there if you want to. Go down there and check it out." And he said, "I don't need to check it out. I want it." He felt the location, and the high number of black people, concentrated in the county, but only about 1% of whom were registered to vote. So that's why he took on the challenge down there. And all the Avengers seem to come down there too, we know what John did on the bridge, and we know what CT did as far as pressing Sheriff Clark repeatedly, and rousing up the ministers down there and all these kinds of things. And Diane, being down there providing leadership and actually being the one who was in the office when they brought James Reeb in, the white minister that was beaten, the day of one of the marches and everything. So they did some great things down there. But it was really cool. I'd been threatening to do some kind of solo presentation for a while, and I guess Linda Wynn's encouragement, brought it out of me. She's the one
So
that
you
asked me
wrote
to
the
do it.
piece as well.
Yeah, I did. Using Bernard's words,
Right.
And the words of C.T. and other folks that were talking about Bernard in their books. So tried to keep it to mostly things that they actually said.
What
or
did you
wrote.
like more, creating the piece or performing it? Or can't you unlink the two?
Well, I love performing it. I always love to perform, but the creative process was kind of inspiring, to actually come out with something, a finished product that you think is worthy of putting in front of people. I hadn't done that, and I hadn't done that before.
Has that helped you in terms of your work in the civil rights room to be able to draw on those words and those stories that you put into the play?
The two lives really do complement each other, as far as the being in front of people aspect and storytelling. I mean, I'm telling stories in the civil rights room. So I think the two lives really are complementary. But the creative part has been pretty inspiring. It might spark a little something extra. I don't know. I wonder if maybe because there was I had about maybe 10 more minutes, Steve, on that I had to cut.
Really?
Yeah. Because I wanted to talk about some of the white people. I wanted to talk about James Reeb and Viola Liuzzo, and I wanted to talk about what's his name, Jim Letheret, the guy you always see in the pictures during the Selma to Montgomery March, and he's on the crutches, the guy with the one leg. So I had a little more. Yeah, so I might expand it.
How did you get into this acting thing?
I did my first play at age 41. Someone at church told me, you ought to try out for this play over at TSU. It's a Christmas play. And I said, that might be something fun to do. I always sang, in Glee Club in college and everything. And I figured I could go and maybe get in the chorus or something like that, and have a good time. And I got cast as Joseph. And I said, wow, okay, that's pretty cool. He's one of the lead guy, right? But well, not the lead guy, but one of the leads, and it was a really cool process. And people, who were seasoned and more seasoned than me, of course, and people who were veterans, were very surprised at some of my instincts, and they couldn't believe I hadn't done it before, and things like that. And it just kind of snowballed, a little bit, and I never really sought to build a career in acting, but it just kind of happened that way.
Am I correct? Does our mutual friend Jeff Carr figure into the story?
Jeff Carr was the one who cast me in that first Christmas play.
He saw talent. You know what, though? Don't you think maybe at 41 you might have been more of a natural in the audition than maybe someone that was nervous and too uptight about it and too rehearsed?
I was nervous. I don't think I was too rehearsed. That's for sure. But it was a cool experience, and kind of now ripple effect. I kind of actually like to audition. Does that sound weird? I like the nature of the process, I guess. Here I am going to give you my shot, and everybody else is in the room too. And let's duke it out.
It's Banner and Company. I'm Demetria Kalodimos, and we'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
I know you're originally from New York, correct?
Yes.
Or what do you consider yourself a New Yorker or someone from Ohio or someone from Tennessee now?
Well, I guess there are things that you pick up along the way, or things that stick along the way as you move from place to place. The New York accent kind of has faded away over the years. There are times there are flashes of it. It's more a Midwestern thing, I guess. That's the finishing high school years, and kind of formative as far as growing up type of stuff. But I figure I've been here long enough to have honorary Nashvilleian status, right?
I think so.
Oh, honorary homeboy, yeah.
Were you a history nerd growing up?
Not totally. Not totally. I was a math kid. I loved math. I would do all the extra problems, even the ones that weren't on the homework, and like that. And even when I went to college, I wanted to be a math major.
Really?
But then I took a history course that kind of changed the whole direction of my life.
How so? Was it a great teacher or was it the subject matter?
Yes and yes. Yes. Marcellus Barksdale was the professor, Morehouse College, and it was Introduction to African Civilization. And it opened my eyes to a lot of things that I didn't know about contributions of Africans to world history, and made me change my major to history.
It was surprising to me that it wasn't until 2003 that Nashville had a designated place for our civil rights history, that being the Civil Rights Room at the library. Doesn't that seem like an awful long time since everything had happened here in the 60s, and this was ground zero in a lot of regards, and it took us that long ourselves to recognize it?
Well, I don't know. I didn't know, about the room for a long time, even after it was finished. I just didn't come downtown, pretty much at all. But I don't know how timely the creation of it was, but the use and the evolution of the use of the room has been very timely and very important, even today.
And I read that it was David Halberstam, the writer, who was also at one point a Tennessean reporter. His book, The Children, kind of inspired the thinking that we needed such a place as the Civil Rights Room. That's
the story I've heard. Yeah. That Bill King read the book, and he was the one who established put the idea together, and then put up the money for the room.
What is there, and how do people use it?
What is there? Well, it's in our research wing, if you want to call it that. It's the Nashville Room, and this is where there's an area of non-circulating materials. People come for research on Tennessee history, or maybe Southern history and politics, women's studies, genealogy section. The old microfilm room, even though the microfilm machine is new, it's a really cool scanner type of thing now, where you can actually frame up your article and snip it out and mail it to yourself or something like that. But the exhibit space is Votes for Women anchors one end and the Civil Rights Room on the other end. And in the Civil Rights Room, you will learn about what's centered around 2 stories: desegregation of our public schools, and the ups and downs that went along with that, including the doxing, as the young people tell me, the doxing of the families who wanted to sign their children up for what they felt was a better educational opportunity for their family, all the way to the dynamite explosion at Hattie Cotton Elementary School on the east side of town, after a little black girl showed up on the first day of school unannounced. And then, of course, the lunch counter sit-in stories. Our centerpiece of our room is a lunch counter replica, on which are printed the 10 rules of engagement, if you would, for the sit-in protests. And these were very democratically created rules, not dictated, down by the leadership, particularly Reverend James Lawson. But the counter is the centerpiece, and it's a very good conversation helper, I think, being in the circle and everyone looking at each other like that.
Right. That was deliberate, I would imagine.
I hope so,
Yeah.
because it does
it
work.
works.
Yes, it does work, and I'm glad to have found my place in the library universe and it being that place, because I think it's hallowed ground and it's a very, very special space.
How did you get in the library universe?
Well, I came from my church to Metro government. Actually, I worked for my pastor, Reverend Ed Sanders. Do you know Reverend Sanders?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I worked for Reverend Sanders as his executive assistant for about 10, almost 11 years. And, money gets a little tight around the church sometimes, especially when you're trying to do a lot to help folks. And they had to, take out the position. So I found a job with the health department, and I was working on grant programs over there. One was, you remember the Nash Vitality?
Yes.
When we started with these rentable bicycles and all this kind of stuff, and I was on that program working with the faith community, getting churches to consider better food choices for Bible study, or have a walking Bible study, or have a walking meeting, and then different stuff like that. The churches started running clubs and building gyms and all kind of stuff like that. And but the 2-year grant cycle, ends, and you wonder what's going to happen. And I got into another one. It was a fatherhood initiative. We were helping young dads get their child support, situations in order, and help them learn how to try to be better communicators with their kids' moms. And it was a great program. We'd have about an 8-week program of workshops, and the guys would have a little graduation ceremony, and we'd help them get a suit, for job interviews, and their kids could come and see them actually graduate, and it was really awesome. But the 2-year cycle, it ends and you don't get it picked up again, and that's when I came over to the library as an administrative assistant to one of the associate directors for collections and technology. That's how I got in.
But as a history major, you must have felt at home around all those books and all that material.
It rubs off. It
Yeah.
rubs off. You start reading a lot again. At least I did. You start reading a lot again, and after about 2 years, my boss resigned, and Andrea Blackman was upstairs, and she was actually scouting me out at the same time while everything was going on. So like she was scouting me out, and I was learning more about what was happening up here with all these awesome groups and everything, and it kind of slipped right in, and I emerged from underground like a cicada, and that's been my spot ever since. Yeah.
It's Banner and Company. My guest is Elliott Robinson. We'll be right back. Now, a little bit of history here. Teach me. Was February 13th, 1960, the first sit-in here?
The first sit-in here, yes.
But it wasn't the first ever.
No. There's evidence of the tactic being used as early as the late 1930s, early 40s.
In what way?
As far as sitting in, I'm not sure about all the details, but places like D.C., I think Washington D.C. had something going on, and maybe somewhere down in Oklahoma, but don't quote me on that one. But similar situations, I believe, as far as trying to be served in an eating establishment.
And gaining access, right?
Yeah.
That was denied. Yeah. Why do you think it took off here and then?
I think one thing was the assemblage of people that somehow all ended up here at the same time. It's kind of like, the Avengers or something, coming together in this place to try to change something. But the leadership, man, and just the ability to stay true to the principles for the effectiveness of what's going on with the protest, but also all the other things that Reverend Lawson says you have to have, all the training and all the recruitment and all the different things that you need in order to sustain the movement. And I think the belief, the feeling that they weren't doing it for themselves, that they were doing this for generations to come. I think that's something that's really impactful, and that helped them even more. Wow, I can't imagine how strong.
Talk about the cast of characters. I mean, there are some very strong personalities and people who are now written in the history books who were very young people at the time.
Very young people at the time, yeah. Wow. Reverend Lawson, of course. He was, I guess, in his early 30s maybe when he came here and started to teach these folks about what he'd learned on his travels to India. He went to India on a mission trip for the Methodist Church after he got out of jail for not going to the military draft. And I don't think he came here, necessarily to start a movement, but so much energy bubbled up around this interest in these teachings that he's, sharing, that they started to wonder, is there something that we could possibly do? Of course, Diane Nash, one of the strongest leaders in this movement and even beyond.
From Chicago.
From Chicago, yes. And she knew what segregation was, intellectually, she said. But when she got to Tennessee and started to attend Fisk, and she saw the, the overt, nature of the segregated society, the segregated existence with the signs and everything, then she really understood emotionally at that point too. And she said that she started to attend Reverend Lawson's workshops because they were the only game in town, the only one that was trying to do anything to try to, at least share ideas to combat segregation. And that's how she got involved, and she rose to the level that they called her Madam President around the movement. And she was just a very powerful leader. And even to this day, I wish I could meet her. One of these days, she's still with us.
Of course, John Lewis.
Of course. The name you know, right? A young man. Wow. I first met him when I was in school at Morehouse. He came to speak. I had a chance to meet him. It wasn't like a conversation or anything, but I had a chance to meet him. And then to watch him serve in Congress so long, and really stay true to the fight all the way to the end. Mm-hmm. I think it's something really admirable, man. A real American hero, if there ever was one, to put himself squarely in the mix, of the storm. I mean, at time and time again, from walking into these stores downtown here, from, signing his will and getting on the bus for the Freedom Rides. I mean, to being the first one over the top of that Edmund Pettus Bridge, can you imagine the sight that he saw at the bottom, right? And he goes forward. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And at this point, he's still, 24, 25 years old at that point, just amazing people. C.T. Vivian, Reverend C.T. was one of the professors at ABC. And he wasn't a stand back in the shadows type of professor. He was a roll your sleeves up and get out here in the front too. He was very supportive of the students. And I thought it was very powerful that he and John passed away on the same day back in 2020.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah. Like, come on home, brother, let's go,
There was also, at the same time the sit-ins were going on, there were some economic boycotts where African Americans simply were not shopping downtown, and they were, exerting the power of the purse in a way.
Right.
Were those as effective?
Oh, most definitely. It allows the whole community to participate, right? I don't want my grandmother at the lunch counter getting beat down and thrown in the paddy wagon, but I can say, hey, Grandma, maybe you just shouldn't spend your money down there at all, right? And my father-in-law, Kwame Lillard, used to tell us about the education squad, education committee, I think he called it, during the boycotts, where, say, they catch me coming out of Harvey's or something, I've got a bag, they might take my bag from me or slash it and knock my whatever I bought on the ground, just as a gentle reminder, that this boycott is going on and it's serious, right?
Yeah.
And the estimates, we have a film down there that estimates the participation at 98% in the boycott, and that some merchants were losing as much as 40% of their business. because you have the black customers are not coming. The ones that are coming are getting terrorized, not in a dangerous way, but reminded that the boycott's going on. And then the white people hear about the roving bands of marauders downtown terrorizing people, and they don't want to come down either. Right? So there's that ripple effect, and it was very powerful. And for the first, counters to start serving people by mid-May, it's only about 90 days from the first time they sat down, And this is without fighting back or resisting arrest, and nobody's shooting any guns or nobody's burning down any buildings.
Right.
They're staying true to those principles, the do's and don'ts, and to each other, and the faith that things will be better for generations to come.
Right. I didn't know your connection to Kwame.
Yeah. Kwame called me son-in-law. His daughter Jessica is my better 2/3, and just having him kind of a part of my life that way, and also being that mentor on the work side. He was actually the one who gave me a great boost of confidence one day when I tried to introduce him, and I'd been there about a year or so. And I would always introduce him when he came. And this particular day, he told me to go ahead and tell the story. And I looked at him like, "You mean in front of you?" and he gave me a very powerful vote of confidence after I finished that.
And for those who don't even recognize the name and know the man when he was still with us, what did he do?
Oh, wow. What did he not do? Oh, wow. Engineer, TSU graduate, sat on city council for a while, founded the African American Cultural Alliance, and up until the very end, we lost him back in 2020, December. But till the very end, that summer, the George Floyd summer and everything, he was out in the street, man, with that fist raised up.
How did the white community react? Do we have a good feel for what percentage were backing the students and the young people, or were they keeping quiet and keeping to themselves?
I don't know about percentages, but there definitely was support. A lot of interest for Lawson's workshops came from other campuses. You had white students on, Vanderbilt and Scarrett, Peabody, and different places that are interested in learning about these principles. And then as the effort escalates, many of them become, very worthy allies, co-conspirators, in the movement, and and instrumental, in making this change. They say Nashville's lunch counter movement was more integrated than any other major city.
Really?
Yeah. You had the interesting idea of the white exchange student. Growing up, I think exchange student. He's from Denmark or he's from Germany or somewhere, right? But you had your white exchange students at Fisk who were from Indiana or California, and a lot of them were the ones who were getting involved in these things and helping to make this great change. It's funny, early on, I forget which store it was. The first 3 stores were Woolworth, McClellan, and Crest, all on Fifth Avenue, same side of the street. And I want to say it was McClellan's where the owners thought they were hip to what was happening. And they would alert the white patrons and tell them, "Hey, let me know before you go, and we'll make sure we get somebody else white on your stool." And then they end up seating a white student who holds seats for black students, and then they have to shut the whole thing down too. So,
wow.
But very, very, very powerful allies. Very important.
Are any of those, have any of those people told their stories in like an oral history or something?
We have Paul LaPrade, who was one of those exchange students, and Guy and Candy Carawan. I think we have their oral history as well. Guy was a song leader, taught a lot of songs during the movement, worked up at Highlander a lot, and was really a pretty influential dude in teaching a lot of the music. Those protest songs. We take a song and adapt the verse and change the verse and then make it something else. But Guy and Candy I wish I could have met him. He's a really cool dude.
How long did those students stay in jail when they were thrown in the paddy wagon and taken downtown? How quickly were they bailed out, or were they?
That I need to look a little more into. The offer was bail or 30 days, and I don't know if they kept folks for a whole 30 days. I've got to look more into that aspect of the stories, but it seems like it would be such a horrible look,
Yeah.
for the city to be holding these folks, when you're not doing anything to the people perpetrating the violence or anything like that. But that's one thing. There are always layers to peel back and look a little deeper into, and I have all the resources at my disposal.
Yeah. Are there any myths that have been perpetuated that just have turned out not to be true?
Ooh, myths.
Or maybe inaccurate stories that catch legs and...
Good question. I don't know. I pride myself on sharing things that I've heard directly from participants or, listened to in their interview or read in their transcript of their interview or something that they wrote if they've written memoirs or stuff like that.
And these people are getting up in years.
Yeah,
I mean,
we're losing a lot of them. We have a few left. We've lost our most talkative, willing to share veterans. That would be Kwame and Rip Patton. Groups would often call and say they want us, book the time, but one of them was coming to talk, and we would say, yes, please, come on. And that's when I would grab my pen and paper and try to remember something to share with somebody else.
Banner and Company is a production of the new Nashville Banner. Our producers are Steve Haruch and Andrea Tudhope. Original music is by Verlin Thompson. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or go to NashvilleBanner.com. You're in good company. Your choice, our final question is in the fishbowl. And we've only got a few in there, so whichever one you choose.
Do I have to answer the one that I pick out?
Yeah.
One shot?
One shot. Tell us who it's from.
It's from Ellen Angelico. What color
are your hand towels?
I guess they vary. The hand towels, we've got some brown ones. I know we've got some purple ones. Jess loves purple. And some blue ones, I guess. Just in the, for the half bathroom.
Okay, that's one of the best questions we've gotten because it's,
Is it really?
it's off the wall. But then again,
Very, very much random, yes.